Formula One fans worldwide, we're going to talk about whether or not George Russell will be successful at Mercedes if and when he is officially announced to be Lewis Hamilton's teammate for the 2022 season. As of the time I'm recording this video, which is September 5th, he has not been officially announced, but we can assume within the next week that announcement will be made. It's two sides of this conversation. There's one side which appears to be the majority of the community that believes George Russell deserves a seat for one and that he will be successful at Mercedes. But the caveat to that is that he may have to play second fiddle to Lewis Hamilton and may not be able to really challenge for those wins, similar to what Valtteri has kind of been subjected to doing in the last couple of years of his career. And then the other side of the conversation is that there are people, I think a small minority of fans of the community, who thinks George Russell does not deserve that Mercedes seat. They don't think he is a great driver. They don't think he's very talented, and they think he is actually really overrated, and that the British media just love him to death, and they're just pushing him to the moon. I'm going to lean on the side to say for sure that I think George Russell is a very talented driver. I think he's one of the most talented drivers on the grid, and he's just had the unfortunate luck of being in the Williams, who could be actually competitive next year with the regulation changes. They can move from that bottom tier team, essentially, that was kind of on par with the Haas, to now actually being a legitimate midfield contender in the 2022 season. But with Russell moving to Mercedes, the real question is whether or not Mercedes and Toto Wolff will allow Russell to actually challenge for the title if he has the pace to do so, or if they're going to tell him to obviously kind of dial it down a bit and to do the whole team orders thing. It's most likely that Mercedes isn't going to let Russell challenge for a title while Lewis is still there. But just imagine if Mercedes did say, we're going to let you and Lewis do your thing and may the best driver win. Imagine what type of title fight we could get in the 2022 season with both Mercedes drivers and Max Verstappen in the hunt. And depending on how the rest of the driver market possibly shakes up, I don't know if there would be a fourth driver in there, but for sure, we saw what Russell was able to do in the Mercedes at the Bahrain Grand Prix last year. Just imagine what he could be capable of if he doesn't have the restrictions and the limitations, and he can actually drive and fight for race wins as any other driver would, especially being with Lewis Hamilton as his teammate. I mean, I can't even imagine what type of crazy title fight that would be with George, Lewis, and Max all going for the world title. We see just how intense and how enjoyable it's been this year watching Lewis and Max fight for the title. Imagine if you add George Russell to that mix. I mean, that's absolutely mega. And that's my only concern with George moving to Mercedes. It seems like, based off of Mercedes' habits over the last couple of years, they are going to instruct him to obviously kind of play that secondary role like Valtteri. Only difference is I think George is much more talented than Valtteri, and George has clearly demonstrated he can qualify well on Saturdays, and he can have the race pace if he's in the right car on Sundays. So it's going to be a very interesting dynamic with George and Lewis. I do think they will get along. Will Lewis resent George a little bit because of obviously the difference in age and the fact that George was able to hop into Lewis's Mercedes at one of the last races of last season, and he was able to just absolutely blow everyone out of the water with his performance? I think, yeah, Lewis will have a little bit of that resentment there, but do I see it being such a toxic a toxic relationship like it was with Lewis and Nico when Nico was really on form in the year that he won the title? I don't think it'll get to that point, and obviously I think Mercedes has learned from that experience, and they wouldn't allow it to get to that point. Not to mention as well, George Russell is a team player. He knows Lewis is not going to be sticking around Formula One for that much longer. I think George will bide his time. He probably will play the secondary role at least for the first season, unless he is able to actually challenge, like I said, for race wins and there's no restrictions. I can see George willing to kind of sacrifice that for the first season. We know he's going to be finishing in the points on a consistent basis, and it's not even a question of where he's going to be as far as his rankings once we get to the 2022 season. But George is a very humble guy, and I don't think he would have any issue being in that secondary role. We've seen that this season, even with having the team prioritize Nicholas Latifi in a race. So George has that right mindset, and like I said, the only difference is he's much more talented than Valtteri. I think he's much faster than Valtteri, and it's only going to be a matter of time before he is able to fully be unleashed, and there won't be much that Lewis can do about it. And once that that happens, I feel Lewis will more than likely be on his way out to retirement. So I would give Lewis another 2 years. I don't really see Lewis sticking to Formula One beyond 2023 at the latest. So George is playing the long game, and I think he'll be fine with his position. It would be great if Mercedes would let him and Lewis race, but we'll have to wait and see once we get to that point. You guys let me know whether or not you think George Russell is going to be successful. How soon do you think it'll be before he's able to win his first world title? And this is no disrespect to Max fans, because I love Max Verstappen as much as I love George, and I do like Lewis. I love Charles. I like most drivers on the grid. I can't say I prefer one driver over the other, but I think if George is able to legitimately race, he will also be very stiff and great competition for Max Verstappen. And I think it's only a matter of time. If Max doesn't win the Drivers' Championship this year, I think it's only a matter of time before George is able to get his first world title win as well, especially once he's able to race at 100% in that Mercedes if everything goes according to plan. And just imagine the battles we could get with George and Max. I would love to see Charles Leclerc and the Ferrari up there in the mix as well. Pierre Gasly, depending on what AlphaTauri is able to do with their car going into the 2022 season. Pierre has been in great form this season as well. Extremely underrated in regards to his performances and his race pace. And it will be just great to see multiple drivers competing for a world title in the Formula One Championship, like we see in the smaller series like in F2 and F3, where we'll have several drivers that can compete. And even in IndyCar, here in the States, you will have drivers moving up and down in the rankings competing for that championship. It would be great to actually see that return back to Formula One, because it's been such a long time, it feels like, since we've had more than 2 drivers competing for a world title. You guys let me know what you think in regards to George Russell, whether or not he will be successful in that Mercedes, and whether or not the team will allow him to actually race Lewis Hamilton in the 2022 season, or if he's going to have to play second fiddle at least for one season. Let me know your thoughts. Comment section below. We should take it from there. If you're new, make sure to subscribe. I do Formula One discussions, especially race weekends. I just started this as of the Dutch Grand Prix. I will be talking about random drivers as well in the market and just anything in regards to that as news unfolds. And yeah, I also play Formula One 2021 as well as GT Sport and other racing titles I will be uploading on this channel. If you can smash the like button, it does help out a lot, and I appreciate you guys a lot. Curious to see what you have to say, and we'll take it from there. Until next time, Racing Chemical is signing out. I hope you all have a great and fantastic day. See ya, and goodbye.